Indeed. Thank you, Riaz. Good morning. We begin with this developing story in New York City, where the fire department is on the scene of what's believed to be an explosion and building collapse in East Harlem. Take a look at this live shot from Harlem. Officials confirm there have been at least 11 injuries. Residents reported hearing a large explosion in an apartment building at around just about a half an hour ago. The building is just off the northeastern tip of Central Park. Images from the scene also showed rubble partially covering a parked vehicle. We'll keep you updated on this as more information comes available. Almost 1,000 volunteers are right now roaming the streets of Metro Vancouver, taking part in a 24-hour count of our homeless population. Here's a look at the volunteers this morning. They'll be surveying people on the streets in temporary shelters and in local hospitals until midnight tonight. Anyone without a fixed address will be included. All the information will be compiled so officials can learn how people became homeless and how they might be helped. The last count was 3 years ago, and it found just over 2,600 homeless people in our region, mainly in Vancouver, with 1,900 of them housed in shelters.
A couple of the trends we've been really concerned about over the last few years is the number of young people on the street, especially coming out of the foster care system. The number of seniors has been growing. There's a really surprising overrepresentation of Aboriginal people. What I would hope is that the numbers are going down and that some of those most vulnerable groups are going down as well.
There's a new development in the perjury trial of the RCMP officer who tasered Robert Jacansky. The Crown is calling a brand new witness. Prosecutors say a woman will testify the 4 RCMP officers met at her home before the Braidwood inquiry. The Crown believes they did that to coordinate their stories before testifying. All 4 were later charged with perjury for their testimony. Kwesi Millington is currently on trial while Bob Bentley was acquitted. Immigrant Robert Jacansky died in 2007 after being tasered and taken down by the officers at Vancouver International Airport. Police have identified a man killed in downtown Vancouver Monday night. 29-year-old Tajinder Mali was shot while sitting in a parked car on Cordova. Another man was in the passenger seat and also hit but survived. Police say Mali was affiliated with different gangs over the last decade. Investigators are unsure how many shooters there were or how the attack was carried out. People who rely on BC ferries have made their feelings very clear about service cuts and higher fares.
Is cutting services helping make the ferry more sustainable? No! Is hiking fares for some of us as high as 142% in 10 years? Are fare hikes helping? No!
Hundreds gathered outside the BC legislature in Victoria to voice their complaints. The provincial government, most are from Vancouver Island or the Sunshine Coast. The ferry users say they fund the system but are being offered little in return as sailings and services continue to be reduced.
They only talk about how few boats there are on some of the late night sailings. They only talk about how much the provincial service fee contribution has increased. They never talk about how this is an essential lifeline service for us.
Provincial government says $19 million in cuts are needed to bring BC ferries in line financially. High-profile candidate is setting herself up to try and replace Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. New Democrat MP Olivia Chow officially resigned her seat in the House of Commons this morning. She is expected to formally lodge her mayoral bid tomorrow. Chow was a Toronto City Councillor for 15 years before joining her late husband Jack Layton in federal politics. The Toronto election is scheduled for October 27th. Our troops have taken down the Canadian flag in Kabul, Afghanistan, officially ending our country's 12-year military mission in that war-torn region. Today's ceremony was held under heavy guard at NATO headquarters. The remaining troops will head home before the end of the week. 158 members of the Canadian forces died during the 12-year mission, along with 2 aid workers, a diplomat, and a journalist. Other NATO forces will withdraw from Afghanistan by the end of the year. All right, it is 7:36. Let's get you up to speed on the world of sports. To the Connected Studios we go. Here's Don Taylor.